The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark.
Glory to you, Lord.
When Jesus had crossed in the boat to the other side, a large crowd gathered around him, and he stayed by the lakeside. Then one of the synagogue officials came up, Jairus by name, and seeing him fell at his feet and pleaded with him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter is desperately sick. Do come and lay your hands on her to make her better and save her life." Jesus went with him, and a large crowd followed him. They were pressing all around him. Now, there was a woman who had suffered from a hemorrhage for 12 years. After long and painful treatment under various doctors, she had spent all she had without being any the better for it. In fact, she was getting worse. She had heard about Jesus, and she came up behind him through the crowd and touched his flock. If I can touch even his clothes, she had told herself, I shall be well again. And the source of the bleeding dried up instantly, and she felt in herself that she was cured for her complaint. Immediately aware that power had gone out from him, Jesus turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" His disciples said to him, "You see how the crowd is pressing round you, and yet you say, 'Who touched me?'" But he continued to look all around to see who had done it. Then the woman came forward, frightened and trembling, because she knew what had happened to her. And she fell at his feet and told the whole truth. "My daughter," he said, "your faith has restored you to health. Go in peace and be free from your complaint." When he was still speaking, some people arrived from the house of the synagogue official to say, "Your daughter is dead. Why put the master to any further trouble?" But Jesus had overheard this remark of theirs, and he said to the official, "Do not be afraid, only have faith." And he followed no one to go with him except Peter and James and John, the brother of James. So they came to the official's house, and Jesus noticed all the commotion with people weeping and wailing unrestrainedly. He went in and said to them, "Why all this commotion and crying? The child is not dead but asleep." But they laughed at him. So he turned them all out, and taking with him the child's father and mother and his own companions, he went into the place where the child lay. And taking the child by the hand, he said to her, "Talitha cum," which means, "Little girl, I tell you to get up." The little girl got up at once and began to walk about, for she was 12 years old. At this they were overcome with astonishment, and he ordered them strictly not to tell anyone about it, and told them to give her something to eat. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today we read a very long gospel, but also a very interesting one, and it's really mainly about the story of Jairus, the synagogue official. But in between this story, in the story of Jairus, there is a sandwich, which is the story of this woman who had hemorrhage for 12 years. And there's a reason why this story is put in between the story of Jairus. I mean, the story of Jairus is there, and then this sandwich story of this woman is because they are really similar. It's all about the journey of faith, faith that you can see at two levels. So this woman, for instance, she had suffered for 12 years. And it was a situation of hopelessness because they said she had gone to all doctors and her situation grew worse. So it was a situation of, I have to stay with this situation for the rest of my life because there was no hope. And but then she said, if only I can touch his garment, I will be well. And that is the first level of faith. He says, she hears about Jesus and she steps up. People are following Jesus because she's going to the house of Jairus, and this woman steps up and touches the garment of Jesus. Now, she realizes something has happened to her, but there is another test of her faith when Jesus Christ says, who is it that has touched me? At that time, she's terrified, she's afraid, she doesn't know what would happen. But despite that, she does not let the fear to be able to overcome her faith, because she steps up to Jesus, he goes to Jesus and says, I am the one who touched you. Even despite the fact that the disciples were trying to tell Jesus, no, people are pressing on you, you can't know any days, no, everybody is touching you. Why would they say, there is somebody who has touched me? So the woman stepped up, and that was the second level of faith. And this is when Jesus said to her, daughter, go in peace, your faith has healed you. So we have this story, which is in between the story of Jairus, and it talks about faith in hopelessness. When this woman has lost everything, she's lost all her property, she has paid a lot of money to the doctors, and nothing is improving. She's getting worse. And I know there are people who find themselves in such a situation when no hope. And the doctor has pronounced already that there is no hope, there is no treatment for your situation. And we go back home hopeless. And how I wish the faith of this woman could be able to encourage some of us in such a situation. But then we have the story of Jairus. Similar also, a story of faith. The first level is that Jairus comes to Jesus and says, I believe you can heal my daughter. So that is the first level of faith. I believe you can heal my daughter. And then Jesus is going to Jairus' house, and then this woman comes and interrupts. And then after he finishes to deal with this woman, and he's about to go to the house of Jairus, then somebody comes from the house of Jairus, and this is the temptation here. Says, no need to bother him because your daughter is dead. So this is another situation of hopelessness. Was first sick, but now he's dead. So there is nothing that anybody can do about it. And of course, the people who come from the house of the official, they tell him, there is no need to bother him. And that is really the temptation. We could as well tell Jesus, you don't need to come again because my sister is dead. We just have to prepare for the funeral. But then Jesus said, no, do not be afraid. Only have faith. Do not be afraid. Only have faith. So this man was left with the choice to say, no, there's no need, or to believe in what Jesus had said. And this is what he did. He did. He believed in the words of Jesus and went with Jesus to the house. And even there in the house, there was still a lot of temptation, because when Jesus said to the people, the girl is only sleeping, he said, they laughed at him, they ridiculed him. But this man stood his ground, and he went in, and Jesus performed the healing. And there is a reason why this girl is also 12 years, corresponding to the 12 years of suffering of the woman who had had hemorrhage for 12 years. Because 12 is a complete number, showing that, it has reached the limit. It is complete already. So in this situation, Jesus meets situations which are hopeless, no way out for it. And just like I said before, there are people, maybe we know people who find themselves in a situation like the woman who has suffered for 12 years and no hope, or Jairus who has lost his daughter, no hope out of it, no way out of it. When somebody dies, is dead. There's nothing no anybody can do about it. But Jesus says, do not be afraid. Only have faith. The faith that can move mountains, the mustard seed faith, the faith and the trust in Him, even when we do not understand, even when there is no hope in the situation, that we can still hold on to Jesus, who says to us, do not be afraid, only have faith. In the first reading of today from Hebrews chapter 12, we hear that we must keep our eyes, in Hebrews chapter 12 verse 2, we keep our eyes focused on Jesus, who is the initiator and the perfection of faith. He's the initiator and the perfecter of faith. And it's so important that even though we might not understand, even though we go through situations which can become hopeless, even though the doctor has said you are in stage 4 cancer and there is no way out, you are just going to die, to hold on to Jesus, because nothing is impossible for Him.